What is going on, guys? Welcome to The Reformed Reader, the channel where we review different forms of media through the lens of a Christian who is under the authority of the Scriptures. My name is Josh, and today we're going to be doing a review of Red Rising by Pierce Brown. So let's start with, what is this book about? Darrow is a Red, a member of the lowest caste in the color-coded society of the future. Like his fellow Reds, he works all day, believing that he and his people are making the surface of Mars livable for future generations. Yet he spends his life willingly, knowing that his blood and sweat will one day result in a better world for his children. But Darrow and his kind have been betrayed. Soon he discovers that humanity already reached the surface generations ago. Vast cities and sprawling parks spread across the planet. Darrow and Reds like him are nothing more than slaves to a decadent ruling class. Inspired by a longing for justice and driven by the memory of lost love, Darrow sacrifices everything to infiltrate the legendary Institute, a proving ground for the dominant gold caste, where the next generation of humanity's overlords struggle for power. He will be forced to compete for his life and the very future of civilization against the best and most brutal of society's ruling class. There, he will stop at nothing to bring down his enemies, even if it means he has to become one of them to do so. All right, guys, normally the way that these reviews work, if you haven't seen these before, is I go over the good, the bad, and the ugly. So let's start with the good. What did I like about this book? Pretty much everything. This book is awesome. Now, I want to give just a little bit of context because I picked this book up about 2 years ago because I heard how popular it was, and I got about a chapter in and I really liked it, but then I realized I probably need to do some research on this since it is a popular series and see maybe what some of the content is in there with while avoiding spoilers, to see if there were some of those relationships in here that are normally an instant DNF for me. So I did some research, and sure enough, it came back that there were a couple of these relationships in here. And so I just immediately shelved it. I think I even bought the first book, and I think I sold it on Pango or something like that. But I just never came back to it. Well, then I start my channel. I meet some really cool people, all of you that I've been able to talk to. And I met a couple guys on Instagram that are also Christians, some of which are even pastors. And they've told me, like, your perception or your understanding of what is in here it has been skewed a little bit. It's not what it's been made out to be. This is a fantastic story. It's one of the best series I've ever read. I actually think you'll love it. So these guys, having seen a couple of my reviews, knowing what my convictions are and the severity of those things are, they still recommended it. So I told them I would give it a try, and I picked it up. And man, am I so glad that I did. Am I so glad that you men talked me into picking this book up, because it's first week of February, and this is already going to be a strong contender for Book of the Year for me. To me, this book was almost perfect in just about every facet. It was so different. So I'm going to try to avoid spoilers as much as possible for any of you who haven't already read it. But let's start with the characters. The characters in this book are awesome. Darrow has quickly become one of my favorite characters of all time, which is really surprising because he is a character that is so driven by hatred and vengeance. I guess some people would call it righteous vengeance, but I mean, this isn't the Batman kind of vengeance where it's really justice. No, this is vengeance. He is seeking straight vengeance for some terrible things that happened to him. Another thing about this book that I mean, it's not super thick, but man, it really surprised me in just about every way, because I was like, oh, sounds like a pretty cool sci-fi premise, but I went into it blind. So I had really no expectations whatsoever, except for the amount of people telling me that this is one of the greatest book series of all time. So, I tried to leave my bias at the door and set my own presuppositions or preconceptions about this book aside, so that way I could just read it for what it was. And I'm glad that I did, because I didn't even want to read the premise of the book. It was just about every few chapters I was surprised in a way. So one of the things that Pierce Brown did in this that I really enjoyed, that I am normally not a fan of, is he has some little, I don't even want to say time jumps, but he does skip ahead a little. So it just cut out a lot of the fluff. He just thinned out a lot of the unessential day-to-day mundanity of Darrow's life, which kept this at a super fast pace, which is one of its strong suits, in my opinion, because there is not really a chapter where there's a lull. Now, even in the chapters where there's a lot of dialogue, or there's maybe a lot of that more political drama in the background, it's still very much high stakes. So, I mean, the characters are awesome. The world that Pierce Brown has built, while it's not extremely original, it is original enough. The concept is original enough that I really didn't know where he was going with some of these things. And again, these are all good surprises. So somebody described this on YouTube as Hunger Games for men. You know, while I think that maybe falls flat and that analogy breaks down quickly, I do think it's mildly accurate. I would say maybe not Hunger Games for men, but it's more of Battle Royale. It has a similar feel to that on Mars. I mean, the characters are awesome. The world was awesome. The plot, I'm so invested. It sunk its hooks in me at around chapter 5. And for those of you who've read it, you know what I'm talking about. I was just floored with the methods that Pierce Brown is using to continually drive this plot forward. So the plot is really, really great. The writing is very accessible. So this would be a fantastic book for new readers, like men in particular. So overall, the good, every page. Every page is good. So now let's talk about the bad. And what do I mean by the bad? I mean the writing choices, maybe some stylistic preferences and things that just personally may or may not have worked for me. I guess this is a spoiler for the end of this review, which is I didn't really find anything bad in this. There wasn't anything that I was like, I would have changed that, or I don't know that I would have focused on this point. I mean, I thought that every word, every sentence was intentional, and you could tell. Now, you could also tell that Pierce Brown probably went through a few revisions with this in order to cut out some of the excess. It's like somebody stomps the gas and they never let up. I mean, it is just that fast paced. So really, I didn't find anything in this that I would consider bad or even a stylistic preference. This entire book is my preference. So then that brings us to the ugly. And what do I mean by that? I mean, for a Christian, what is maybe some sin that might be steeped into this work that could keep a Christian or hold a Christian back from picking this up? There's a few things in here, and it really, again, this comes down to personal preference and convictions and things like that. I mean, this book is extremely brutal. So if you're not here for that, if you're here for the love story and things like that, then I would say go read Hunger Games, because this isn't the book for you. If you're here more for the brutal story of vengeance, then this is definitely more your cup of tea. The brutality in particular, there are definitely some uncomfortable scenes. There's things that are going on in the background that are meant to make the reader uncomfortable. And Pierce Brown succeeds in that. There are times when I was reading and I was, made you cringe a little bit, but not because the writing was bad or because what I was reading made me want to put the book down, but it was because he was intentionally making the reader cringe away from these acts of brutality in order to get the reader to understand the hedonistic nature of this society. I don't really want to get into too much as far as specifics so that I don't spoil anything, but there's some language in here. There's some, I wouldn't say explicit scenes, but there are scenes that, again, are going on in the background. So just keep that in mind. This is not for young readers. This is not, this is not YA. This is not anything like this. Is an adult science fiction novel. So just know that going into it. So I wouldn't hand this to my 15 or 16-year-old and say, here, check this out. It's a little brutal. Now, maybe if they're a little bit older, a little bit more mature, again, that's up to you and your household. But for me, if you're asking me, I wouldn't give this to a young reader, but I would absolutely give this to a more seasoned or adult reader. So this leads me to the final question, which is, would I recommend this to a Christian, or should a Christian read this? And again, this comes down to, it depends. It really depends on you. It depends on what you're looking for. It depends on the severity of convictions that you have, or it depends on the convictions you have at all. To me, this almost felt like I came away from reading this with a similar feeling of the first time that I watched 300. I mean, it is just that fast-paced, high action movie, but in book form. So it just depends on you. I would say, again, if you're looking for something that has zero language in it, this isn't for you. If you're looking for something that doesn't go into some of the more detailed descriptions of the brutality of war, this isn't for you. If you're not willing to peer into a world of hedonism and an individual and a group that is trying to fight against this hedonistic culture, then this isn't for you. But some of you heard those things and you're like, that is for me. I loved this. So again, would I recommend this to a Christian? Absolutely, and will, but it depends on who it is. So some of my male friends in particular that love those really fast-paced action movies and things like that, this would be an excellent book for you to pick up as, like, maybe you've never really picked up a book as an adult. This is a fantastic first read because it keeps you reading. It's one of those that at the end of every chapter, you have to read another to see what happened. So absolutely, I would pick this up. Absolutely, I would recommend this to the right person. So in a nutshell, I absolutely loved this book. I loved it so much that I immediately picked up Golden Sun. As a matter of fact, I was enjoying this book so much that Nerdy Inc. was running a sale on these dust jackets, and they may still be, and they were 50% off. So I got the entire series of these custom artwork dust jackets, I think for $16, and I think shipping was free. And so if you guys have the series and you're looking for these, now's the time to pick them up because I think they're liquidating the rest of their inventory. And it was confirmed that they will be doing the last book, so that's awesome. We don't end up with another Kraken Book Company situation. Yeah, I was like halfway through this book, and probably not even that, and I went ahead and bought all the dust jackets because I just knew that I was going to love this so much. Not because I was convincing myself of it, but because the book was showing me that I was already convinced of how much I'm going to love this series. I absolutely loved it. I picked up book 2 immediately after. I think I'm like maybe a quarter of the way through it so far. And I'm actually recording a reading vlog of me going through this book. And so I'll post that whenever I get done, just to change things up a little bit. So that'll be pretty cool. But yeah, if you're looking for these dust jackets, it's Nerdy Inc. And like I said, I think they were $16. So get them while they last. If you're interested, they're for the standard hardcover editions. Spines match up really cool. The artwork is really cool. The art on the back, I mean, it's got just a really unique art style in it. So anyway, thank you, men, who recommended this series to me, because otherwise I would have missed out on what is most likely going to be one of my favorite series of all time. So thank you guys so much for watching again. Let me know what you guys are reading. Let me know down in the comment section. Please like and subscribe to the channel, but more importantly, please share these videos to your friends. If you have Christian brothers and sisters who love to read, but they're looking for a channel that is going to be sort of like the Common Sense Media for science fiction and fantasy, that's what I'm hoping to do here. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. Thank you for watching and sticking around, and I'll see you on the next one.